In this segment, we're going to be talking about the anatomy of the 2022 midterms. That's right, folks, the exit polls, what Florida showed us. And before we get into that, I want to welcome all of you to the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. I'm your host, Dr. Sheikh. And if this is your first time, we certainly hope you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you know when we have other videos coming up. And we're going to be talking about the anatomy of the 2022 midterms. We're going to talk about Florida. We're going to talk about Pennsylvania. We're going to talk about Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio. So look for those videos as they come out. But we're going to get into Florida right now. These poll questions were done by CNN, and they really give us a sort of a dissection, as you would say, into what happened in these midterms. So let's get right to it and let's go those questions right now. So as you take a look at our first question here, we see that there were a total number of respondents was almost, let's say, 4,000, 3,877 to be exact, but nearly 4,000 respondents. And as age, if you take a look at the 18 to 24-year-olds, well, they broke for Christ by about 10 points. 25 to 29-year-olds, they also broke for Christ. And the same thing with the 30 to 39-year-olds, it was a 5-point difference. DeSantis definitely won those 40 and above. And haven't we heard this before, where it's that the younger generation, they tend to vote Democratic and liberal. And then when they really start to understand what life is about and they start to pay those taxes, they have their kids, they're starting to, college, all of a sudden they realize that everything they voted for is basically screwing everything up in terms of their lives because they didn't realize it at the time. So anyways, the younger generation does tend to vote Democratic. As they get older, they turn to become more conservative and vote Republican. If you take a look at marital status, here, DeSantis, wow, folks, 62%. He won the married vote, which is exactly what Republicans and conservatives do. Not married, it was 50-50. But when you're winning this by nearly, almost, 24 points, you can afford to be tied in here. But this is not bad either in terms of not married, 50-50. Condition of the economy. If you thought it was good, yeah, you voted for Christ. If you thought it was not so good, this is the part. 56% of Floridians, even if they thought they said the economy was not so good, 56% still gave their vote to Chris. That's really surprising. And if you thought it was poor, you still gave 9% of your vote to Chris. That just doesn't make any sense to me, but that's exactly what happens. And what they say, folk, you vote, that's what you get for it. Thank God it was DeSantis in Florida. Party ID. Democrat, 28% identified as Democrat, 42% as Republican. That's nice. More Republicans identifying by party ID in Florida. 95% to Christ. You would expect that. 97 to DeSantis by Republican. Independents. He won by 8 points. That's what needs to be done. We need to win independents. Any candidate needs to win the independent vote. Ideology. If you were liberal, 20% of respondents said they were. 90% went to Christ. You would assume that. Surprisingly, 10% for DeSantis. I would have expected that to be more showing here, which it did, but in the moderates, so you're either a moderate Democrat or a moderate Republican, not too much of a difference here, 8 points. And then here, look at the conservative vote, 42% think the value of Floridians, the respondents said they were conservative. 94% went to DeSantis. I don't understand this 6% if you're conservative, how you go to Chris. It just doesn't compute with me. But 6%, that's still, to me, that's a, 1%, 2%, okay, 6%, that's a high chunk. By race, white went to DeSantis. Again, we've got some work to do within the black community, but 13% DeSantis, Trump got 12%, so this is 13. Latinos, look at this, folks, nearly 60%. A great, I think Trump had 35, 36% or whatever, Latino. So DeSantis definitely up that there as well. Gender, pretty much split down the middle, 49, 51% here. 35% males, went for Chris. DeSantis, almost by 30 points. Here, DeSantis also wins a female vote. Excellent as well. Let's go to, here's one, condition of the nation's economy. If you thought the nation's economy was excellent or good, 22% of respondents said they voted for Christ. 15% went for DeSantis. This I don't understand at all, folks. If you thought, again, the condition was not so good, it was poor, 30% still went for Crist. Yes, DeSantis, I would expect this to be much higher, in the 90s. But this right here, folks, is you're going to see this in Michigan. You're going to see this in Pennsylvania. You're going to see this out in Wisconsin, out in the Midwest, and other states as well. Abortion was the silent vote. It was the undervote that was showing in many of these places, even in Florida. But other things came up in Florida. DeSantis also being at the at the pinnacle of everything and doing what he did as governor. But this here, other places, look at this here. If it was legal in all cases, Chris got the vote 78%. I would expect that he would have gotten a much higher percentage. So some of these that, even though they thought it's legal in all cases, they still probably didn't think it was the number one thing that brought them to vote. It might have been number 2, number 3, number 4 on their list. Legal in most cases, Chris wins here as well. Illegal if you thought it was illegal in most cases, 90% went to DeSantis. This 10% here, if it's illegal in most cases, I wonder who are these people? And then if it's illegal in all cases, if you thought abortion should be illegal in all cases, I think this 12% for Chris is high. This should have been in the mid-90s over here. And then abortion should be, again, legal or illegal. 56% said it should be legal. That went for Crist. If you thought it was illegal, went for DeSantis. And again, this 11%, if you thought it should be illegal, the vote should have come down here to DeSantis. Gender by marital status, married men, 68% to DeSantis. Married women, nice figure here, up by 11 points. Unmarried men, statistically, basically a couple of points. And here, unmarried women, tied. Very nice. I mean, we'd like this number to be larger, but that's usually been one where in other states you'll see the unmarried women, we lost by a lot. Republicans lost by a lot. Again, we went gender by race, over age, education, college graduate. If you're a college graduate, DeSantis won college graduates. He won those that had only a high school degree. Another great, great sign for DeSantis. Education by race. So here we see DeSantis by nearly 19 points with white voters with a college degree, white voters with high school degree. He's winning by 50. If voters of color with a degree, Crist by 3 points. And voters of color no degree, Crist wins by 11. We looked at race, immigrants to the USA, party by gender. We looked at that. And folks, this is on CNN. There's so many questions here. I could be here forever. So I'm just trying to take a look at the questions that really seem to... education by gender among white voters. White women, college degree. DeSantis wins. White women, no degree. DeSantis wins significantly. White men with a college degree. He's winning that vote by 50 points with white men with no degree. And voters in color, he's only behind by 7 points. So this is in terms of the education spectrum, those with a college degree, those without a college degree, high school degree only, DeSantis is picking up those votes. Looked at the education there. First-time midterm election voter. Where were those first-timers? 11% said they were first-timers. DeSantis, 6 out of 10. Excellent. And if you weren't, and it was, or wasn't your first time, he's winning those votes as well. Cuban descent, yes, 7%. DeSantis, 70%. That's one of the reasons why Miami-Dade and Broward County became redder and redder, or, turned redder. DeSantis, again, even if you weren't of Cuban descent, he's still 17 points up. Puerto Rican descent, DeSantis by 13 points. Here's one. In the presidential vote, if you voted for Biden, who did you vote for? You voted for Crist, but 6% of those still voted for DeSantis. And this one here, 52%, they said they voted for Trump. The 52%, 95 gave to DeSantis. There was still a peel-off of about 5% that went for Crist. Let's see, your opinion of Biden is, if you approved of Biden, you went with Crist. If you disapproved, you went with DeSantis. But here's my question again. If you disapproved, this is still a big number, 10%. I would expect this to be in the mid 90s to high 90s. Here's one, folks. In the past year, inflation has caused your family. If it caused your family severe hardship, you voted 74% for about a 50-point move. But here, moderate hardship, you still gave 42% to Crist. And if it was no hardship, you gave it to Crist, but he won it by 61. But moderate hardship, they're still giving it to Crist. Here's one. Most important issue to your vote. Inflation in Florida was the number one issue. But number two was abortion, where across the country, they were saying abortion was number 4, 5. Sometimes it wasn't even appearing in the top 10. So depending on the state you were in, folks, like in Michigan, this was the top issue in Michigan. Pennsylvania, this was, I think, number 1 or number 2. Crime, all right, was, third here. Now, if your vote was to support Biden, you gave it 99% to Crist. It was to oppose Biden, you gave 99% to DeSantis. Pretty cut and dry. And if Biden was in a factor, people didn't care one way or the other about Biden, which is, how do you find people that don't have an opinion on either Trump or Biden? There's one or the other. Where are these people that are in the middle on these, straddling the fence? I'd like to find out. But nonetheless, Crist won that one by 7 points. Now, here's one. If your vote was to support Trump, of course, you would expect this 99%. I still would, if you want to support Trump, I don't understand this 1%, but it's there. If you oppose Trump, here's the other way. If you oppose Trump, how'd you give 8% to DeSantis? That doesn't make any sense either. If you opposed him, but I didn't oppose him as much. Well, this was just a simple support or oppose. It's one way or the other. At least that's the way I look at it. And here's one. This is interesting, folks. Trump is not a factor. Nearly 60%. So Trump's not a factor. You really don't care about Trump. You gave it to DeSantis. That is an excellent number in terms of Trump running in 2024. Here's the one right here. If you Roe v. Wade, if you were enthusiastic that was overturned, DeSantis, 98. I don't even know who these 2% were. This should have just been 100% here, if I'm looking at it. If you were satisfied, 90%. Here's one. If you were dissatisfied with Roe v. Wade, you know what? DeSantis still got that vote. And if you were angry with it, look at this, folks. If you were angry with it being overturned, wow. Crist cleaned DeSantis' clock on that. I would thought there was a much. If you were angry, again, I don't understand this 13%. If you're angry with that, these votes should be up here. Let's go. Do you want Biden to run for president? Opinion DeSantis as governor. Here's the one. Do you want Trump to run for president in 2024? If you said yes, 98% vote for DeSantis. If you said no, you didn't want him to run, well, you know what? You still voted for DeSantis. How many want DeSantis to run for president in 2024? 94%. If you don't want him to run, 27%. Opinion of DeSantis as governor, confident in states' elections. This is one. Feelings about Roe v. Wade being overturned, enthusiastic, satisfied. These are really important questions to understand what happened in terms of why this red wave, this tsunami we were expecting, literally turned out to be not so much as a huge red wave, not so much as not a tsunami, but more like a ripple or a trickle in some of these areas. This is why, folks. This was the reason. Abortion was huge, what the pundits were talking about before. And even myself, it just seemed like, it wasn't there, but it was that vote that was, bubbling below the surface, just waiting to come up. And in certain places, it really did erupt and sort of negated the, in terms of the plurality of vote, that we got 6 million more votes. The congressional, direction in terms of where the votes were going, the generic congressional ballot was plus 4, 5, 6% towards the Republicans. It should have been that red wave, but those certain states that we talked about in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, even in Wisconsin and others, this vote was huge that came out about their feelings about Roe v. Wade. And if you were enthusiastic, satisfied with it being overturned, of course you voted for DeSantis. I think this number, who are these 7%? Why would you vote for Crist if you were enthusiastic and satisfied? Who are these 7%? This should have been 98, 99% in my opinion. And here's another thing. If you were dissatisfied, if you were angry with Roe v. Wade being overturned, this is astounding. You still gave it to DeSantis. Now, my reasoning here, maybe the thinking was is that these people, yes, they were dissatisfied and angry with it being overturned, but it wasn't their number one reason for voting. They weren't that single issue voter like a lot of single women were that just came out and said, it doesn't matter about anything else. I don't care about the economy. I don't care about if I'm not being paid. If I'm losing money, if inflation's hurt my family, I'm falling behind in everything. My 401k is dropping. I don't care about that. The only thing I care about is the abortion issue. That's what I'm voting for. That's who these people probably are. So, anyways, just wanted to go over that. We appreciate you taking the time here with us, and hope this was informative and gave you at least my opinion, what I was thinking in terms of when these questions were asked, and sort of how I would have been, looking at them and answering them myself. So we appreciate you taking the time. Once again, you've been watching the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. I've been your guest host, Dr. Sheikh here, and I'll leave you with my final thoughts, folks. And that is, when you're right, you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time. Check out our other videos on anatomy of the midterms, and we'll see you again.